Hello and welcome back to the 2TAKES podcast with April and Shannon, where we cover topics from two different points of view. Today we are tackling feeling old and young at the same time. So I don't know if you can resonate with that, but April's going to kick us off with that topic.
So just as a disclaimer, this is going to be more of a personal insights and perspectives podcast than an actual probably business related one. But I think that it's one that most people who are listening to this, it will resonate with in some form or the other. So Shannon and I just were chatting about this before we started. And some of the things that we came up with were, I've gone blank now, Shannon. That's clearly an issue of old versus young. I don't feel that old.
You feel old or young right now, April?
I know. I don't feel old, but I'm having memory issues. So I'm not really sure where we classify that. One of the things that we talked about was like when we talk to our kids now, you know, it's I had a conversation with one of my kids earlier today. Both of my kids are in college. And it was about, you know, life lessons that I learned from 25 years ago when I was in college. And did I feel old at that particular moment? Yes, I did. I did not feel like sage and wise and all of those things. The thing going through my head was, this is the same conversation my parents had with me when I was young, right? I mean, we all get to that point where all of a sudden it's, back in the day, I walked to school in the snow, barefoot, uphill, both ways, somehow, you know, had to stand outside for 8 hours in the freezing cold. It's just the way that it is. But I think about too, some of the things like we, you know, Shannon and I are both, I don't think I'm divulging any major secrets here. Shannon and I are both closer to 50 than we are 40.
True fact.
I'm going to go with 50 as the new 30. Mainly because the way that I feel 25 years ago is not what I thought 50 would feel like. You know, I don't think that I'm this old, decrepit person who is, I mean, I know I'm not hip, but also I know that nobody these days uses the word hip. So that's probably a giveaway right there. But, you know, I think about just all of the new technology things that we adapt to, and which quite frankly, I feel like we have adapted pretty well. I feel like Shannon and I fall firmly into the Gen X category where we learn to live life without technology. I mean, we were like rotary phone and latchkey kids, and we have learned to live life with technology. So we learned life pre-cell phone, pre-ring doorbells, pre-computers, pre-internet. I mean, we grew up with typewriters, actual keys, rotary phones, and the Dewey Decimal System. And we have converted those skills, I think, quite well. We have adapted. I always get a little bit of glee every time I get a new electronic or whatever the case may be. Now, my husband, exact opposite. Like, you give him a new phone, he's like, seriously, I got to learn a new phone now. So anyhow, those are my generic thoughts on young versus old. I know Shannon has actual explicit thoughts. So
I don't know about that, but I think about this because as of recently, some of the conversations I'm having, I'm hearing things that I'm saying going, I never thought I would have said that before. So recently I've said, yeah, you're right. They don't make things like they used to anymore. Who would have thought I would have said that? And
They don't though. Let's face it, they don't.
yes, they don't. And so I'm thinking about that going, is that a me thing? Is it a reality thing? Probably both. We live in a throwaway society for the most part. Even the most sophisticated technology is only good for a while, and then it is wasted, right? So it is just interesting to me. And I started thinking about this, much like April, going, how can I feel old and young at the same time? And I realized that it was my perception of what I thought I would feel at this age. I thought maybe I would act more mature. On the daily, I can pull it together pretty good, but there's moments when I'm in comfortable spaces that, you really just kind of let your true self out. And so having that maybe youthfulness or that humor, I don't know why, at some point, even not really in forward thought, but in some subliminal thoughts I had that would go away at some point. I don't know if that's what I thought was modeled to me. Maybe I wasn't in those comfortable circles of older people at the point. So I thought that would be my reality forever. So, but what I realized is that my feelings about old and young has changed. Yes, my terminology just goes back to my rooted hip. I'm keen on that, right? Whatever it may be, I date myself with the lingo a little bit. But I also realized that, like in referencing that they don't make things like they used to, my values also have shifted just because of the life stage. So maybe my expectation is to buy quality now because that is affordable to me, where I was super stoked when someone gave me a free couch at one point. It was okay that it was avocado green, at the time. It was free. I remember being in an apartment where we dumpster dived for our first Christmas tree, and it was pretty nice shape, actually. And we were stoked about that. So I think about that going, my values have shifted. So my expectations probably have shifted a little bit on that. And that I also feel like in instances where I'm like, God, now I'm feeling old, I'm sounding old, is when it relates to my adaptability. If I'm feeling like being adaptable is more of a challenge, that's when I feel old, because I know I need to adapt. But if it's not coming as easily for me, then I'm like, oh, this is what feeling old's like, right? I'm having trouble grasping this. I love that April lumped me into tech advancements with her. I can tell you that on the road of tech advancements, I walk with her halfway, and April is more prone to go the whole distance. It actually is easier for her than for me. I can take the journey part of the way. She has to hold my hand the rest of the way, oftentimes. You would see that if we showed you outtakes of me getting Zoom ready for today. And April so kindly goes, remember, I took a screenshot of the settings. Oh yeah, I did. So I thought before we got on this Zoom call. And then I also feel like young certainly does not feel like being young in my body, in my joints, in my energy levels.
I take my melatonin at 9 p.m. on the dot every night. I can guarantee you I didn't do that when I was 18.
Right. Yeah. So there are things that we were laughing with another person. This was a few years back. And she goes, yeah, my husband has his weighted blanket. I have to take my sleeping. But all those things happen in my house too. We have things like that make me feel less young. But when I am feeling young is when I have moments of spontaneity and I am willing
9 p.m.
Yeah, after 9, if I'm up after 9 p.m., I'm feeling pretty young that day. But if I push my limits a little bit of comfort, I lift some restrictions I would have put on myself. And I think about these specific moments is when I was young, I was way more spontaneous or adventurous. And then I went into a phase where I had some fears of heights set in. I don't really know why. I used to go on ski lifts all the time. When I was with my kids and we did the ski lift over Henry Dorley Zoo, I had my eyes screwed shut. Take a picture, show mom later. I can't look. I don't know why. And possibly it's because you get to this stage that so much depends on you. You know, if something goes awry, it's going to be really, really bad. If I get injured, the recovery time is going to be more. Who's going to do my mom activities? How am I going to earn a living? Like all of these things start going in your head. So I am now at a stage, as April divulged, where our children are proving to us mostly that they could take life if we happen to not be able to take any more of the journey with them. They should be able to feed themselves and live happy lives. And so maybe this spontaneous I'm seeing coming back a little bit. What happens if I want to jump out of an airplane? I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I'm willing to push myself in directions that I otherwise would have been like, absolutely not. Is the will up to date? Should we take 2 flights? Because all of these things happen. But yeah, so that's kind of where I felt like the old camp is my lack of adaptability. And my young camp is if I'm feeling like I can start bringing those things back into my life and embracing spontaneity and limitations that I might have put on myself. So that's how I have justified in my brain when I'm feeling old and young at the same time.
Something that you, as you were talking about our kids, it just reminded me, something that my very wise 18-year-old daughter said not terribly long ago. And I may have mentioned this before, I don't know, but she is just now entering the beginnings of adulthood. She's off to college. She's all of those things. She's 18. But she had said at one point in time, it was actually during an argument that she and I were having, that, her world at that point in time was this big. And my world was, you can't even see my hands now on the screen. My world was this big. And her world was just a tiny fraction of that. And that is something that literally has resonated in my head. Like it's been on repeat, basically, ever since she said it to me. And I try to keep that in mind as I think about or talk to younger employees or younger people around me, that I don't want to be that patronizing, well, when you're older, you'll understand, which is probably true. When you're older, you will probably understand my point of view, or your perception will have shifted, or whatever the case may be. But that, the youth out there, sometimes the dreamer mentality is, it's still there just because the world hasn't gotten as big and as crowded as it has for us. So I always, just as a side note, try to keep that in mind when I'm dealing with the younger folk in my life, employees again and whatnot, just that my life experiences are not their life experiences as of yet. And that's okay. And we can share those things without seeming like totally old codgers, I guess.
That phrase.
Yep, exactly.
I'll put a link to a book that just came out, Tim Elmore. I really like books that I've read by him. This was gifted to me recently, have not read it entirely. So keep that in mind. However, I feel very comfortable saying I really love this guy as an author. And he talks about a new workplace diversity, and it's all the ages within our workforce right now. So there's 5 generations he's marking out, and how we view the world, how we make decisions, how we see ourselves engaged in team environments. So we gave you a personal experience of our feelings, our perception of our stage in life. I do think that the value is that well-rounded teams come from all sorts of viewpoints. So that might be a book that you want to pick up. He is an author that makes his content very easy to read. So we do have diversity within our lives, our communities, and certainly within our workforce. So something to be cognizant of, that all are valuable and needed for success. So we'll leave it there. Leave us messages in chat if this resonated with you. How do you view old statements, youthful statements? What did this spark in your mind as you listen to us? So thanks for spending some time with us on our 2 Takes podcast. We'll see you next time.
Bye.